make your day richer than it was before. Got some good times knocking upon your front door.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Make Your Day Richer, and I am here with my amazing guest, Bob Wischer. Bob, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Richard.
Now, what I wanted to talk to you about today, when I found out about you and was researching about you, was something that I had heard about a couple months ago and was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense, but I had never thought about it or heard about it. And it's the concept of pre-birth trauma.
Yeah.
Can you tell everybody what that is and how you found out about it and what that means to you?
Well, so I'll start with where I found out about it. Is I learned about it in my coaching certification program, and it pretty much blew me away when I learned about it. Basically, what it is there's developmental learning windows and birthrights. So from like pre-birth to 2 months, you have a birthright to exist. Then from 2 to 6 months, you have a birthright to need. 6 to 12 months, you have a birthright to be separate and still belong. Ages 1 to 2, you have a birthright to take action. And 2 to 3 is the birthright to love and be loved. So basically, if you were to experience a trauma, could be a big T trauma, small T trauma, any type of energy that your young body that doesn't know what to do with it experiences, basically gets programmed into your cells, into your body, subconscious, wherever it ends up living in your body. And the one I realized a couple of years ago is that when I did the one year I did the math and realized that my birth date and my parents' wedding anniversary were less than 10 months apart. And I was like, okay. And interesting at the time, really not a big deal. I mean, my parents are amazing. They've done everything in my life to support me through all kinds of things, between school and divorce and all that stuff. But as I learned about this birthright situation and some of the things that I was carrying as an identity throughout my life, things like, I don't have the right to be here. I always felt like I was a fifth wheel. I always felt like I was on the outside of friend groups and social groups and sports teams and all the things that I love doing and trying to be a part of. Even though I may have been in, I didn't really feel like I was in because of this programming. Didn't feel like I belonged, pretty much even in those friend groups or different social groups in college and elsewhere. I always felt like I was there, but I wasn't embraced like I felt like I needed to,
Would you say it's like similar to like imposter syndrome, kind of, or different?
It definitely leads to it for sure.
Yeah.
It definitely leads. It sets that mindset up for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But what I eventually learned, that where all that came from, was that birthright to exist, because I was very likely absorbing the energy of my parents at the time. They're in their maybe I actually take that. My dad was probably 19 when I was conceived, because my dad turned 20 right before I was born. So basically, he was 19. My mom was 20. She's a year older, so she's about 20. Young kid, late 60s. Not really a thing to have a kid. Not at least not socially acceptable, right, back in that day. The judgment, the things that were going on around. My dad was in college at the time. He was playing baseball at the time. Ended up he had to get a job at that point. and he quit playing ball. And actually, I just confirmed this with him about a month ago. He turned 75, went down to Cleveland for his birthday. And my wife asked him just a random question, like, what's one of your biggest life dreams that you didn't get to accomplish? And he said, playing Major League Baseball. And and I had already had this connection made in my head, but that was like the validation, right? That was, he stopped playing ball because I was coming along. He had to take care of me, get a job, set up how to take care of me, how to take care of my mom, all that stuff. Obviously they got married, but that was all of that anxiety and stress and all the things that were going on in them. And my grandparents on my mom's side were super strict with her. And I'm sure she had her own tension and everything. So between the two of them, it's all being embedded into me and making me believe these things about myself from an I wasn't even born yet. Wasn't even out of the womb. And
yeah, it's your fault that he's not doing what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Right?
So all of these things end up then showing up in different places throughout my life, in elementary school, in junior high, getting bullied, because I felt like I wasn't part of the group. I felt like I was getting bullied by some of the kids. Even in college, being I was in a business fraternity, and I felt like I was in, but I wasn't in. I wasn't in crowd. I wasn't, and I always longed to be, and I always wondered why. I just had this massive longing to be part of things and be connected, but it was all because this identity I had in my, and we'd call it playing small or shying away, or like you said, imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
All of that stems from that. But we do have the thing is, we do have a right to exist. We do have a right to feel like we belong. And it's taken me a couple of years now since I learned this, but I've worked on reprogramming through all of those things to realize that I do belong now. My voice does matter. It's why I'm doing podcasts, why I'm having this discussion with you right now today, is because I know now my voice needs to be heard. I have things of value to share with people and help them realize what's going on. And it actually just happened a couple weeks ago. I was facilitating a small group at my church, and it was for people that were battling depression and anxiety. And this young girl, 20-something-year-old young lady, was talking about her particular situation. And I came back. I said, "Do you remember any traumatic events that happened to you when you were young, when you were little?" And she said, "Well, yeah. I had all of a sudden, what she remembered, what she recalls, was that when she was around the time she was 2 years old, she no longer was around her birth father, but this other man came into her life." So I can assume from that, mom and dad separated or divorced at that time when she was 2, and then this new man came in, and whatever the circumstances are around that part of the relationship don't really matter. But so I read to her this list of because that developmental window between ages 1 and 2 is the birthright to take action. And I read to her the list of the untruths that are believed by someone that has a trauma, and that like, I can't make mistakes, need to be perfect, I don't have a voice, if I mess up, I'll die. Why bother starting? I will just fail anyway. And I read through this entire list, and her jaw was wide open.
Check.
Like,
right? Yeah.
That's me all the way down the list. And she was like, "Holy cow! How come they don't teach us this? How come this isn't a known thing?" And I couldn't answer that question, but I do have some knowledge in that, and then the and knowledge, of course, is one thing, but then working yourself out of it, and that's what I do in my coaching. I help people work through those issues, work out of those issues, kind of reprogram, neural pathways and all of those things of why we believed all these things and how it formed our identity, whereas this is the real us and how we should be and how we can reform our identity to live into who it is we feel like we should have been all along.
Oh my gosh. You said that like it's been fairly recent, right? Your kind of discovery of all of this, and you've gone into coaching about it. Is it something that you're still working through? Like how, not that it's the same for everybody, obviously, but like, is it something that you still deal with, that you still, are seeing a coach or a therapist about as well? Like, because there's so many layers, right? So many layers.
Sure. I'm pretty good with it now. It's a never-ending process, right? I mean, just like personal growth of any kind is a never-ending process. We'll never be perfect. We are always striving for growth. My mantra is 1% better every day. So I'm learning, I'm growing. I do work with a coach. I think it's an invaluable asset. I've worked with multiple coaches over the last 7 years, on and off, and I know I'm at my best. I do my best work. I'm the most creative. I take the most action when I'm working with a coach, when I have somebody that I'm accountable to. When I'm not being coached, I can have all the great ideas. I can say I want to do all these great things, but without that kind of that push and that extra little oomph, I call it I plateaued. I did last year. I was not working with somebody. Started to feel like I was pushing a boulder up a hill. And I was like, you know what? I got to look into this again. And the coach I'm working with now, Kate, just came. It was kind of like I almost like the day I thought of it. It was like this person popped up and it's been an amazing journey so far. And just to be able to have somebody in my corner on a constant basis. I mean, I could text him right now and say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this," and he'd give me either some wisdom, or he'd ask me a question about how, why are you thinking that, or what's going on, or, whatever the case may be. And it's so valuable to have those people in your corner, because it makes life better, and B, it makes a business better. My goal is to build this business to where I can do it full time, and with him in my corner, I'm able to take bigger strides, faster strides, versus the little baby steps that I take when I'm by myself.
Is that why you got into it? So you could also be in someone's corner? Because that's so,
absolutely, important.
Yeah,
absolutely. That was actually the first thing I realized when I hired my first coach back in 2016. First of all, it was amazing, because I thought it was, I had seen Tony Robbins up on stage, right? And pumping people up and doing all that, asking questions and all that. But to have somebody every week that you can, even if you're having the worst day, you can just mind dump out, and they help you sort it out. And it was probably a month or two into seeing that. And it was funny, because I realized at that point I had been literally coaching my son in baseball. And I was coaching his team when he was 12. And one of the things I was doing with all the boys on the team, I was literally doing mindset training. Things like, being prepared to, being prepared as a baseball player. If you go up to bat, one out of every 10 times you get to the plate, 3 out of every 10 times you get to the plate and you get on base, you're doing really, really good. Yeah. So, for the other 4 or 5 times you ground out or strike out or whatever, it's not bad. Even though it feels like a bad thing, it's not bad in the grand scheme of things, because even the best hitters only get 3 hits out of every 10 times they come to the plate. So I was doing mindset coaching with these kids at age 12. And then here, fast forward a couple of years later, I'm like, oh, this is what personal coaching is about. Mm-hmm. And I was just blown away that actually a thing. I mean, because I knew sports, right? I've been doing sports my whole life, but to coach people one-on-one, whether it's business or relationships or whatever they're trying to achieve in their life, to be able to be there and coach them up is just, it was so amazing to me. I was like, oh, I got to do this. And of course I jumped right in at that point, and took I've taken multiple certification programs at this point, but it was so freeing to me to be able to take all of those things that I learned and all of those experiences that I had and be able to apply them and love back on somebody that wasn't feeling loved or didn't feel like they belonged. Because that's the biggest part for me.
Yeah. And do you think it's generally, I don't want to like lump everybody, but generally like male, female, like harder for males to tap into that and to talk about stuff like that?
Well, no, I don't think it's harder for males or females. Like I said, the young lady that I worked with a few weeks ago didn't know any of this either. And,
yeah.
I mean, obviously, I think guys were a little more hard-headed, right?
Mm-hmm.
We think we've got things figured out. You know, I went from basically from the time I graduated college till I was about 40, into my mid 40s. I felt like I knew everything. I didn't need to go get a master's degree. I didn't need further education. Even training sessions and things at work, I would blow them off. And I'd show up, I'd check the box, but I wasn't actively trying to learn anything. I'm reading, John Grisham and fiction books and all this stuff and thinking that, my life is great and it's comfortable and it's all this. And then I woke up when I was about 45 years old and I realized, holy cow, you don't know a damn thing. So now I got a book. Yeah. I got a bookshelf full of, personal help books from, Expert Secrets to Tender Warrior. I mean, some of the Victory Over Darkness, just some of the most amazing books I've ever read, and wishing I had done it 20 some years ago, because I could have used and applied all of that information in the other parts of my life where I was struggling for, basically at some points just to get out of bed. I had a big bout with depression around about 12 years ago. And I would literally sit at the dining room table with my ex-wife now, but my ex-wife and my kids. And I would sit at the table with my head in my hands like this and just stare at my food, because I was so
couldn't do it,
numbed out. I couldn't even interact. And it wasn't until the key was getting out of that marriage, but then after that, realizing that I'd not learned anything in decades. I need to learn things. I need someone in my corner that can help me, guide me and lift me up and encourage me and support me. And then jumping into coaching certification and learning all of the things like birthrights and all that, just to be able to help people is just, it still to this day, it blows my mind that it took me so long to get where I'm at, but I'm excited that I've gotten here, and I'm excited for the things and the people. The people is the best part. The young lady who I helped a few weeks ago, one of the men in my men's group, after 5 years, admitted to me a couple weeks ago about a family trauma that he had when he was younger, and we haven't had a chance to unpack that or work through it at all. But the fact that it finally came up to him and came to his to his consciousness that, oh my God, that's what's holding me back. Just it's a mind blowing that the conversations that you can get into with people, and eventually the light bulb will go on and they will figure out what it is that, and I think to answer your question kind of in a different way, I think we're all missing something. Men, women, everyone, we're all missing a little. There's that burning fire inside of us that we want to answer, we want to get out, but having somebody to hold your hand and kind of guide you to that is super powerful.
That's why, I wanted you to be on the show, because I think what you're doing is amazing. Just one, even talking about it, it's something that not a lot of people are are in a position to talk about it and express it like you do, and then to give it a voice and to be able to go, oh, I relate to him, is just, you just need that one person to see it. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're here. I can't thank you enough for talking about it. Your website is menbecomingbettermen.com.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that and what's on the website and how people can connect with you?
Yeah. Basically, just the things that I do offer on there. We have a local men's group. That's where Men Becoming Better Men came from. Actually, 5 years ago, I developed and founded a group for men, basically support group. Men show up every 2 weeks. We learn some things. We basically sit down and talk, literally, where it's not something that men generally do. Men get together for a beer or out on the golf course. We're talking about sports and the weather and women and all that other stuff. But like I said, we sit down and we talk about heavy stuff. And like I said, this man realizing he had this trauma, back in, he's 60 something years old, and he's just figured out that he's
now,
had this trauma. So that's the in-person group. I'm actually writing a book as we speak to kind of, I've struggled to try to expand. we're local to the Detroit, Michigan area, but I'd love to expand it. So I'm in the process of writing a book to basically a playbook, so that other men around the country, around the world, can just take it and kind of create what we've created. So that's coming down the pike, hopefully in the next 6 to 9 months to a year. I also, obviously, my one-on-one coaching is on there. I've developed a new program. It's called MVP, Most Victories Possible. It's a specifically built program for men. It's 12-month program, but it's super powerful. You will get tons and tons of basically whatever you need out of it. And then also I've linked on my website, it links to my podcast, the Men Becoming Better Men podcast, that's been in existence for several years, up over 100 episodes, just with various content, everything from finding your purpose to, interviews with some of the men in my men's group, the things that they got out of it. It's been a super fun podcast to do. Currently on hiatus, but it may make a comeback someday.
You never know.
And then I'm in the process actually of creating some other resources and things like that. I do have an ebook or two on the website, and a little course for men going through divorce. So there's all kinds of interesting stuff there, just depending on what you're looking for.
Good. Bob, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Bob Wischer, everyone. menbecomingbettermen.com is where you can find him. Thank you, sir, so much.
Yes, thanks for having me.
We will be right back after this. Set your notifications because you won't want to miss an episode of Make Your Day Richer. Host of the Quotivation podcast, Jody Powell, is here. Sexual assault recovery coach Marie McKenzie joins us. Author of A Cup of Tea on the Commode, Mark Stephen Purrow sits down with Rich. Don Mamone teaches us about the benefits of never asking for permission. And Bob Wischer is here to talk about pre-birth trauma. Subscribe to the YouTube channel to watch. Make Your Day Richer, weekdays at 10 a.m. All right, we're back. Good, that worked. Let me get the right thing up here so I can tell you who's on next week, because we have a really, really, really great week next week. Week 2 is over, everyone. Can you believe it? It's been a great 2 weeks. We've had amazing guests. I'm so thankful for everybody who tunes in, who joins us on the show, who has given through our Buy Me a Coffee campaign, who has just shared the show and supported us. It means a ton to me. Next week, we have John Clements here, who's going to be talking about your online presence and elevating that. We've got Stacey Andon here, who if you've watched my last show, the Richard Wilmore show, she was all over that. I love Stacey Andon. She's going to tell you why the world needs your flavor of magic. Autism Rocks and Rolls podcast host and nonprofit founder Sam Mitchell is here. You can discover your true inner healer with Jenny Flora Wells. And we're having our first in-studio guest. There's going to be a real chair right here. And Wendy Waters is going to be here, and she's an etiquette consultant here locally to me, and a friend that I've met since I've lived here, and she's great. So we're going to be talking all about that. What else do I have to tell you? Make sure you subscribe wherever you're watching, listening to this. We're available on YouTube, on Facebook, all podcast platforms. Please subscribe. Please follow the show on podcast platforms. Leave a review if it's good. And I appreciate it so much. Today's Rosie toy is, because the goal here is to get Rosie O'Donnell on the show, is this right here, a Rosie pencil that I have. Again, eBay. I got so much stuff on eBay in the late 90s, early 2000s. I probably spent a lot of money. But whatever, it doesn't matter. It was all worth it. All right, everyone, have a great weekend. I hope you do something good. I hope it's nice out where you live. I'm going to be at the pool. All right, we'll see you on Monday. I love you. Goodbye.